welcome back to my channel. My name is Joanne. If you are watching me for the first time and wondering what have you ventured into, enjoy. For my subscribers and my crime members, welcome. So, former Prime Minister Kevin Rudd wrote on his blog, so this is his website, why I donated to the FriendlyJorides Legal Defence Fund. So he goes, politicians need thick skin. From your first day as a candidate, you should anticipate frequent public confrontations with aggrieved constituents, ear-splitting protesters, brash journalists, and obnoxious commentators. It comes with the territory. When I was Prime Minister, the media would frequently camp outside my home, stake out my electorate office, and throng my local church on Sundays. I once even found a reporter lurking in the pew behind me, apparently trying to eavesdrop. John Howard copped similar treatment, most notably on his morning walks, and managed with great dignity. The ABC's political comedy troupe The Chaser followed both of us around the country for months, involving us in increasingly bizarre stunts. In short, every politician is followed around by folks they don't like. But I never considered asking counter-terrorism police to round them up on stalking charges, as New South Wales Deputy Premier John Barilaro has done. Barilaro is currently suing sharp-tongued comedian Jordan Shakes Markavina over a series of videos accusing him of corruption on his YouTube channel FriendlyJorides. This is Barilaro's right under defamation law. The comedian says he will prove the truth of his claims against the Deputy Premier, who proudly calls himself Pork Barilaro. We await that trial. But Barilaro has radically escalated this civil feud into the criminal courts by pressing stalking charges against FriendlyJorides producer Christo Lenka, a camera-toting 21-year-old who had approached Barilaro twice in public. Separate incidents 6 weeks apart about the defamation matter. Within a few hours of the latest incident on June 4th, the New South Wales Police Fixated Persons Unit, FPIU, the outfit that deals with suspected lone wolf extremists, were diverted from other duties to arrest Lenka at his suburban home. The footage of the arrest is distressing, involving a scuffle that reportedly injured his mother and his dog. Lenka's lawyer, Mark Davies, himself a Gold Walkie winning journalist, has described the arrest as a shocking abuse of power. Nicholas Cowdery, QC, the state's Director of Public Prosecutions for 16 years, questioned why the FPIU was involved when Lenka was not threatening possible terrorism. Having watched the footage myself, I find it disturbing. What's more, the account relied on by police is alleged to be riddled with false claims about Lenka's behaviour that are not borne out on video. I will not preempt the outcome of the Lenka case, but these events raise broader questions about what the future holds for media, for powerful individuals, for the police, and for the public at large. The threat to free speech is clear. While he awaits court, Lenka's bail conditions prevent him from even commenting on the Deputy Premier's appearance or behaviour. He is effectively gagged. He's not even allowed to possess a photograph of the Deputy Premier. These are extreme constraints on an individual who is presumed to be innocent. All freedom-loving Australians should be chilled to the bone. Professional journalists should take note. Whether or not you approve of FriendlyJorides style, it is always irreverent, often abrasive, and sometimes obnoxious. The substance clearly includes elements of journalism. They inquire into matters of public interest and publish information and opinions about them. If this gag is the consequence of approaching a minister in a public place twice in 2 months, it's legitimate to ask what sanctions await media workers who linger outside their homes and offices. What about those who obtain the private phone numbers of public figures and bomb them with unsolicited calls and text messages? forget the effect of civil defamation laws if daily journalism becomes a question of criminality we all suffer. Depending on the outcome of this matter, the nation's rich and powerful may test a new principle to its limits. It may be cold comfort that if such arrests were ever based on misleading information to police, those public figures would be torching their own reputations along with any future political aspirations. The consequences are also profound for the public's confidence in the police. Law enforcement agencies operate at arm's length from government, but they know it's the politicians who allocate budgets, appoint commissioners, and writes legislation. For that reason, they should just operate. For that reason, they should not just operate, but be seen to operate in that way. It's not difficult to find an Australian whose complaint to police has taken forever to investigate for lack of resources, especially among Australian women. Against that backdrop, the visuals of police swooping on a comedy writer within hours of receiving a complaint involving the Deputy Premier is jarring. It could seriously erode public trust. It's no secret that there's little affection for FriendlyJorides in the media establishment. They have copped plenty of barbs for their pro-Labor sympathies, vicious caricatures and puerile humour. These media critics demand Labor figures boycott the channel, yet don't seem to worry when Liberal ministers fawn over their far-right polemusts of Murdoch's Sky News, who argue the pandemic may be orchestrated by vaccine manufacturers in league with the United Nations and the CIA. But whatever your feelings about FriendlyJorides, the potential consequences of these legal battles are too big to ignore. For that reason, I have donated to Lakers Defence Fund and encourage others to do so as well. In the meantime, I respect Barilaro's right to defend his reputation in the civil courts. But, on reflection, doesn't pressing criminal stalking charges at the same time cause us all concern? And it says that Kevin Rudd appeared on FriendlyJorides as a guest. Kevin makes some very good and valid points in there. The police should always be seen to be at arm's length with the government. Sure, the government writes the legislations, they pay their bills, they allocate funding, but they're there to ensure that the law is followed. At what point have we got politicians dictating what is lawful and what's not lawful? The point about, and this point continually comes up, particularly there are many women who are having to deal with stalking from exes in domestic violence claims, and they have been waiting years and years and years, and they can't get any action. And yet, a guy that refers to himself as Port Barilaro, really? He gets his feelings hurt and he calls in the heavy mob? I'm just shocked. So this is from a publication called The Conversation. This is written by a postgraduate research fellow, Griffith Criminology University, Sussex, from a criminologist. Produces arrest. What is the New South Wales Police Fixated Persons Investigation Unit and when is it used? So he's going to go through and talk about what it is and when should it be used. So he states here, so this was written on, when was this written? There might be a date down below. A producer for YouTube comedian FriendlyJorides was recently arrested for allegedly stalking and intimidating New South Wales Premier John Barilaro, following investigations from the Fixed Persons Investigations Unit, FPIU, of the New South Wales Police. This unit, set up in the wake of the Link Cafe siege, was created to monitor extremists and fixated persons who may not fall under Australia's counter-terrorism laws, but nonetheless pose a risk of serious violence. At the heart of this case will be charges of intimidation and stalking, but it also will raise the questions around what constitutes a fixated person and when the use of this unit is appropriate. So here he talks about the two allegations. So it says at the time of writing, the channel has around 500,000 subscribers. I think it's like 500. I think the channel is growing. So this one is when this is about the arrest. This is about the first incident about them at Macquarie University. This is the second incident at the car. Based on the alleged instances, Lanka was arrested by the FPIU and charged with 2 counts of stalking and intimidation. The offence contracts a maximum penalty of 5 years imprisonment, where someone stalks or intimidates another person with intent to cause that person fear of physical or mental harm. This talks about the bail conditions. So now we're going to get into what this fixated person's investigations unit is, because I think this is really important. We have to know the background of this unit before we can work out whether it is abuse of power. The FPIU was established in April 2017, shortly before the New South Wales coroner released his report into the linked cafe siege. In announcing the new unit, New South Wales Police Commissioner Mick Fuller referred to people who are obsessed about issues, ideals, or individuals, and are plotting acts of violence or capable of acts of terrorism. The unit comprises of 17 detectives and government mental health workers. It is based on similar units established previously in the UK and Queensland. The FPIU is a specialist unit that performs risk assessments of people with obsessions, grievances, or ideologies that may lead to serious violence. It can access a suspect's medical record to assess the list of risks they pose. People monitored by the FPIU include a man who bombed a couple's car following months of online abuse, and another who was charged with terrorism offences after threatening Sydney police with a knife. The New South Wales coroner supported the unit's creation, calling it a commendable step towards improving terrorism prevention. He believed there was a clear gap in the identification and management of known actor terrorists or fixated individuals who could fall through the cracks despite repeated warnings of violence. In response to the questions from the conversation, New South Wales Police said the FPIU investigates fixated persons, which is defined as someone who has an obsessive preoccupation pursued to an excessive or irrational degree with a public office holder or intentionally protected person, or other persons nominated by the Commissioner of Police, or a cause influenced by an extreme ideology. Just on a side note, the Commissioner of Police can say that some can make that decision. This is just a side note. Do you know who the New South Wales Police Commissioner's neighbour is? ScoMo. I'm not saying anything. You read into that what you like. But the police commissioner has the power to say that somebody so a fixated person is someone who has an obsessive preoccupation pursued to an excessive or irrational degree with other persons nominated by the Commissioner of Police. A public office holder or internationally protected person. If you are a journalist in New South Wales, I would be very, very careful now. Back to the article. Police might argue Lanka fits under the first of these grounds, if the content and conduct towards Barilaro could be classed as obsessive and excessive. Lanka's lawyers have argued Lanka's arrest and bail conditions just strike at the core of our democracy. At trial, the issue will be whether the charges of stalking and intimidation can be proven beyond a reasonable doubt. But the case may also set a precedent about what the fixated behaviour and the appropriate use of the FPIU. If that bar is set too low, there will be serious risk to free speech and democracy. Of course, everything will turn to evidence at trial, so we should watch this closely. And this is the point. By having him charged, Ranker charged with through the fixated persons unit, the issue has to be what constitutes stalking and intimidation. What constitutes excessive behaviour? This is going to set a precedent. And I don't know. Sometimes I question people's decision makings because they only look at the here and now. They don't think about the ramifications or the consequences of what they're doing. This may actually backfire on what the Fixated Persons Investigation Unit is even all about. This is actually really dangerous. This potentially has huge ramifications. Because if what Christo Lanka did was stalking and intimidation, everyone is on notice. And Kevin Rudd makes a really good point. There are journalists out there that get private phone numbers. There are journalists out there that sit outside the houses taking photos, sit outside houses. They get followed. All of that goes. I do think that sometimes journalism goes too far in their behaviour to get a story. But this is dangerous. This is a really dangerous precedent, in my opinion. And I don't think there's been any thought to what the potential outcome could be. Well, I'd like to know what you think. Tell me what you think. Do you think that this could be a really dangerous precedent? Do you think, I don't think it was, in my opinion, it's an abuse of power. But tell me what do you think about all of this? It's pretty scary stuff, I think. I know I'm starting to share opinions because it's quite scary. And Kevin Rudd is right. Whatever you think of FriendlyJorides, there's a bigger picture here. We have a fight for free speech here, and holding people accountable. If we lose this ability to hold people accountable, what else have we got? Tell me what you think in the comments below. And you have a great day. Thanks.